This week in 40K.
Welcome to This Week in 40K. He's Billy and I'm Colin, and we're back on another lovely and wonderful and amazing Tuesday morning. Isn't that right, Billy?
That's a level of that is a wonderful and amazing level of enthusiasm that I will do my best to match. And I've had one sip of coffee, so there's a chance that I do.
This is, in fact, the show that is about the Grimdark, but in fact, it's what?
Neither grim nor dark, I believe, is what we say.
I thought that Billy and I were going to play off of each other there, but there was a long pause. We're unclear if Billy's internet is participating appropriately or not in the show. Anywho, excuse me. So, everybody, we have a wonderful morning for you here today. The wonderful people of WTC are getting ready to get underway. We have tournaments from last weekend to talk about, and just a bunch of things going on. And before we do that, I wanted to ask Billy, what have you gotten to do that's 40K related after moving and having a young baby at home?
Well, I have gone to the dark side, or rather the golden side, and I'm assembling custodes and playing with custodes. Here's Trajan. Here's a Blade Champion. In my search to find a melee army in 10th edition, I tried everything but custodes, and then I tried custodes, and I was very mad at myself because they're just so much better at doing it. But I'm actually having a lot of fun theory crafting with them. For having as few options as they have, there's quite a bit of optionality in the builds that you can make. And I'm looking for. I have an RTT this weekend that I'm looking forward to.
Oh, so, do you?
Yes, I do.
You get to leave the house?
I get to leave the house for an entire day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
In a similar vein, I'm not enjoying playing Eldar really at all, which we'll talk about why that is in just a little bit down the road here on the episode. But I am, in fact, playing Dark Angels, my first army ever. I've played them 6 times now, not in tournament or anything, just practice games. I've played Custodes and Ultramarines a couple times, and Tyranids. I've played Knights and also something else that I can't remember right now. Orcs? Can't remember. Anyways, yeah, I'm just having a wonderful time. I'm non-ironically taking a Land Raider for the first time ever. That's very fun. I have Deathwing Knights, which I've never gotten to play with before. I own 20 of them, I think, and I've never been able to put them on the table, which is a weird sentence for me. So I've just been really enjoying playing 40K, ignoring that the S tier exists. My friends are just not playing Eldar. We're just not playing Genestealer Cult. And we're only putting things like Knights on the table if we know there's going to be a reasonable matchup. So it's been fun. The reality is that I quite like 40K when you remove the outliers, right? No one's playing Votann on the bottom end. No one's playing Eldari on the top end. Yeah, it's been great. Are you... You're playing Custodes, so you have a game into everybody. But are you hype for your RTT this weekend?
Yeah, quite a bit. The store that I'm playing at is a much younger in terms of experience in the game meta than where I used to at the old place that I lived. So there's a better chance of me doing well, I would say, at this one. Also, a few of the sharkier sharks are not coming. So I have a decent shot at doing decently, which would be exciting. Up my overall RTT count 1 in my lifetime to 2, which would be 100% increase. That's very exciting. But yeah, it's a really good group of folks. There's a shockingly large amount of space for the San Francisco Bay Area, and looking forward to it.
Okay. That sounds great. All right, let's get into the show, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, before we get into the show, I want to remind everybody that we're just about a month out from Charity Hammer. And for those that don't know what Charity Hammer is, it's a Thursday afternoon to Sunday afternoon, nonstop, 24/7, well, not 7, but 24-hour-a-day stream with some of the best, not only some of the best players in the world, but some of the very best advocates for 40K in the world. Fantastic personalities. They're going to be on stream playing 40K. They're going to be talking to you. They're going to be interacting with you. You can ask them anything you want. And all of this is to do nothing but raise money for charity. Charity Hammer supports the Child's Play charity, who makes sure that hospitals, children's hospitals, not only in the United States but around the world, have appropriate games and toys and technology to help those kids get through awful experiences. I've shared the story multiple times, but my youngest spent some time in Children's Hospital at a time in his life that was terrible for him and his mother. So this is a charity that's incredibly close and dear to our heart. It's going to be 9/14. We have the roster, and we're about ready to announce it. And then we, after we have the announced, then you'll see an agenda. You'll see the way that you donate. And you'll be able to buy objective markers like you normally can, all the normal stuff. But here's the thing I really want to mention. I'll bring pictures next week. We have two beautifully painted armies to give away.
Yeah.
Two.
Beautiful.
Yes. One of them is a Marine Army that is gorgeous. And the other one is a completely kit-bashed Necron Army, which is gorgeous. So just incredible. Giving away some beautiful, beautiful armies. And it's just going to be really, really, really fun. I hope you guys are able to tune in. I hope you're able to donate. The highest amount of money we've ever made is $40,000. 40K for 40K is what we called that. I'd like to do 42K for 40K and at least say we did more than we did that one time. Okay, we're off. Here we go.
Our top story.
Is it WTC?
It is WTC. WTC has started, at least the War Masters, which is the singles event. You can go to their website, and they actually have a link to 5 different YouTubes that are streaming it. And very exciting. The pods apparently were announced a very long time ago, so probably been covered, but we were going to discuss that a little bit, just some thoughts. And it's for those who care about competitive 40K, this is something that's worth watching, and it's one of the best coverages of it that's existed in its history. So this is a good year to try to keep up.
Yeah, and there's a lot more. If you're a member of the U.S., there's a lot more U.S. people there than there typically was. So that allows more of an information channel to get back to us, which I think is neat. Because in addition to the people that are playing, a lot of the kind of practice team for US WTC is there as well. All the TNG guys are there. Only Lucas is playing on the team, but Tyler and Naj are there as well, just as an example. So I know Ben Jurek and his wife are out there. Ben's going to be at Charity Hammer, by the way. I know they're out there. I don't believe Ben's playing for the team. So it's really a neat thing. I think that the world needs more things like this right now. There's a lot going on where a lot of people, especially the United States, is a little intolerant of others at times. And getting everybody together for something like this is really, really special. So if you haven't, go and look through who's playing. There's a Latvian team. There's an Israeli team. There are small, legitimate, medium-sized, sure, but there's also small countries that still sent 8 people to go play 40K. And I love that. Teams to watch out for. Typically, Poland does very well. Russia often does well. The UK, actually, I didn't see Russia in there. Are they?
I would bet Russia would have a serious challenge traveling at this point in time.
Oh, that's a very good point. I'm being dense at the 7 a.m. in the morning. Russia is not there. But Poland always does really well. UK has won several times. The US has won before. Australia won last year. Those are the 4 teams I'm kind of keeping an eye on. But, we've been covering a lot of tournaments. Scandinavia has a lot of tournaments. Spain has a lot of tournaments. Germany has a lot of tournaments. So those are all countries that are playing a lot of 40K. I think the edge goes to the 3 kind of big power heavyweights in my mind. I think that US, Australia, or England will win. That's kind of my vibe. The players from England are incredible. And further, England as a whole has more tournaments than the US does, it feels like. As people that talk about tournaments each week, the largest tournaments tend to be there. So those guys are playing a lot of 40K at a very high level. And I think that helps them going into this. I think that US did a better job building their team than they've done in a long time, and they certainly have prepped like crazy. I know that Bortel was playing a game over TTS like every single night, helping prep the team.
Yeah.
So it's there's a lot more prep happening there. I don't know a lot about Poland. I just know that they typically do very well. And then of course Australia shocked everybody last year by winning both the singles event and the team event. Things to say about WTC, Billy?
That was comprehensive and wonderful. This event is not only one of the biggest events for competitive 40K, but content creators love it too. I struggle to think of a major content creation group that doesn't have some vested interest in this event. So go to all of your various other sources and watch the things that they've done as well. There's a lot of good sources there, and we will be covering it as diligently as we can. We have people on the ground there, and I'm sure Best in Tabletop will have quite a bit of chatter about WTC as it goes on. We're being told in the chat right now that Tyler is 2-0 in the singles event. Naj struggling at 0-2, but they will, I'm sure, be breaking it down in great detail.
Also, Germany has the most wins, which I didn't know, and I'm happy someone shared.
Yes. This was the European Team Championship for a very long time, with a few crashers like the US, because we played 40K as well, but it really has become global in the past 4 or 5 years. So
for the record, Australia is also not in Europe.
True, but I don't know how far back their participation goes, and certainly their wins.
Oh, I don't
know. Keep an eye out for that, and it will be a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. You can go find all the lists on BCP. That's a pretty fun activity because these are team lists. Because of the pairing process, you can be a little bit more skewed in your list, like John Lennon's Custodes list for Team USA. Looking at it, it's pretty clear that he's not expecting to see Genestealer Cult. Just one example. Okay. But you can look through that and you can see things like that. It's really quite interesting. One of the things I want to say that's a little bit of foreshadowing is that there are Death Watch lists all throughout WTC. And this is a thing I've been wondering about because Death Watch, in my mind, after reading all the rules and talking to friends, is the best Marine army. Yet, we haven't seen them at all so far. They haven't done well at tournaments. We haven't seen them perform really much at all. And yet this week, we get to talk about both them doing well at tournaments, and we get to talk about the fact that they're in a lot of WTC lists. I only saw one list in my initial skim that had a Marine army other than Death Watch. And that was, I think, Poland. No, I think Scotland has a Dark Angel army.
Yeah, Innis is playing Dark Angels, and calling that army a Dark Angels army is kind of a slight to Dark Angels players because it's just a normal Marine army with 10 Deathwing Knights.
Yes, that's what Dark Angels are. I can speak from experience. I like the Vengeance Speeders as well, but that's because I love the Vengeance Speeders. But it's hard to not acknowledge that they're 15 points more than a Lancer. It's hard not to acknowledge that math equation exists, and Lancers are extremely good. So that would be my one comment on the Dark Angels.
Yeah, just to chime in on the Death Watch and to your point of teams, armies, and John Lennon planning on avoiding Genestealer Cult, those Death Watch armies are very good into Genestealer Cult. There's a specific unit combination of like Phobos Librarian and the infiltrators in their kill team squad that are untargetable outside 12 inches and can't be deep struck within 12 inches. And that combination is very unpleasant for Genestealer Cult to play against. So I think my assumption is that the plan is to try to pair Death Watch into Genestealer Cult as many times as possible, or the other deep strike armies. Demons. What other armies want to deep strike on your face? Those are the two that come to mind.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. And Death Watch also just shoots a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like they just will hose you off the table with their guns. So. Pretty surprised we hadn't talked about them much before, but we'll certainly talk about them this week. Other than that, I went through the list. Everybody has Knights. There's no surprise about that. US. Not the US, it's true. I think last year they didn't take Knights as well, and we're the only team that didn't take them.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then some teams have both Space Marine Knights, or excuse me, Imperial Knights, not Space Marine Knights. I don't know what that is. Please, dear God, GW, don't make Space Marine Knights. I don't need more Space Marine in my life. Billy's lost. Okay, Billy, go ahead. Let's talk about Space Marine Knights.
No, I just I'm more of a Marine player than an Imperial player, and I like Knights.
What if it was just a really giant Terminator-looking Terminator like that?
Okay, 30 seconds. There's a super cool third-party Space Wolf Knight head and like full conversion kit you can find on Etsy, and I've managed to remain strong every time I've looked at it, but I've gotten very close to being weak quite a few times.
I've played against that.
Yeah.
I've seen that in person and played against it.
I saw it at Nova once, and it was very pretty.
I was just going to say some armies have Imperial Knights and Chaos Knights, which I do not think is a bad decision at all. I think those armies are incredibly hard for a lot of the meta to deal with. They spam a lot of high toughness at you, which a lot of armies just don't know what to do about. They have good board control. They have punch and shoot. They score secondaries well. It makes perfect sense to me that so many people would have Knights. Another thing I noticed, Billy, is that almost everybody has Tyranids, which I thought was extremely, and everybody has Genestealer Cult. Let's be clear. Everybody has Eldar. Everybody has Genestealer Cult. But there's also a lot of Tyranids, including Naden on Team USA. Excuse me. I think people are playing it on Team UK, England as well. And the Tyranid lists are what I'd expect. There are a million inexpensive bodies.
Not all of them. Not all. The US one is not a million inexpensive bodies. The US one is Old One Eye and his friends.
Yeah, which is like 500 points.
Yeah.
But aside from that, Neurogons all throughout the list because they're ridiculously cheap for their points. Gargoyles are incredible. They come in 9 inches away and then shoot and move 6, even on the turn they come in. So you can bring them in 9 away from a unit, shoot that unit, and then move on to the objective. And now you've got the objective. They can come in, of course, and do actions. Gargoyles are in all the list. They're incredible. Biovores just shoot and their spores can do actions. So you can like shoot their spores in the corners of the table and do things like investigate signals. So Tyranids are really neat and they play the mission super well. The reason we don't see them in singles is because they have so many bad matchups where they just get wrecked by taking so much damage while they're trying to score points. Now, the reality is, first of all, with some pairing prep, you can kind of avoid that to some degree in WTC. But the bigger thing that I think is a big deal is you're doing aggregate, you're doing differential scoring. So the fact that the Tyranids score really well while you kill them makes them a good army in WTC, because it means that if you put Tyranids into someone where it's a bad matchup, they don't get 20 0'd and give 20 points to your opponent. You lose like 12-8 or 13-7 or 11-9, and you've got a close loss that the rest of your team can overcome. So as a longtime Tyranid player, I just wanted to share my thoughts there. It's also, of course, interesting because Tyranids are the first codex. So these Tyranid lists we're seeing just don't matter long term.
Even like how long do you think? When do you think the Nid Codex comes out? I think 4 or 5 weeks.
September.
So, right, but September's in 3 weeks.
Okay. I don't know what to tell you.
My point is just I don't think it's even long term. I think it's medium term at the outside.
Okay.
That was an uninteresting comment to Colin.
No, I got distracted. I'm sorry. I love you, Billy. It's okay. Should we talk about what's winning?
Yeah, it's that's a detailed, in-depth.
What's winning?
Oh, I did that for my own amusement, Billy.
Okay.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Or you...
I was just breaking out thesaurus brain and being sarcastic. It's not. Sorry, guys. The indices are
so what's winning? Eldar. Thanks for coming to This Week at 40K. He's Billy and I'm Colin. No, I'm kidding. God, this is ugly, guys. It really is. Eldar, this is awful. I'm sorry. I know we're the positive show, and the positive thing is that when we've seen a meta like this before, it was emergency fixed. I am amused because right before, right when we started getting all the rules, I started hearing from my friends in the know who had playtested, and basically they were saying, "Wait until you see Eldar." They basically were saying Eldar. Now, this is before any of the nerfs. This is also, by the way, the rumored 50-point Warwalkers and 65-point D cannons. That, by the way, supposedly the D cannons could be in units of 3 until 2 days before the index dropped. Is that true? I have no idea, but those are fun stories that I heard. Something changed because those were errated for the printed data cards.
Yeah.
So I guess people would know if they have the printed data cards. Anywho, so Eldar, out of the gate, we kind of knew what was up. And I don't mean Votan knew what's up. I mean, we knew what's up. The mechanics were written awful. And so immediately they adjusted D-Cannons and Warwalkers. And then literally 2 weeks later, they addressed Fate Dice and raised the points of some of the most egregious things. Then shortly after that, they said that Wraithguard don't have pistols anymore. So they can't charge you, get punched by you, and then shoot you with their guns. Those are massive nerfs. Just if we're just looking at those nerfs on their own, by their own merit, Billy, they're extremely strong. They took Fate Dice and completely changed how it's used.
Mm-hmm.
Changed it to the degree where things like Guardian stopped being useful. People weren't taking Eldrad, weren't taking the Warlord trait that gives you more Fate Dice. Mm-hmm. Just not doing the mechanics to get more Fate Dice because of how much they changed it. Yeah. And with all of these nerfs, they have a 70% win rate without the mirror.
Yeah, and don't forget that the army you were playing went up 250, 300 points.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. The army has been nerfed like absolute crazy. The nerf hammer has pounded upon it. Hammer, 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 hammer. Not enough. It's just not enough, folks. And they're just too good. That's why I'm not playing them right now. It was part of the reason why I that and family responsibilities and a sick dog. I went home 2 days into the Tacoma Open, but I also realized that while I was having a great time with my opponents, I wasn't enjoying my army. Yeah. And that's really hard for me because I get bored easily. But as an aside, I don't like what's going on with Elder. We are supposed to have a data balance in September. If that were before Charity Hammer, boy, would that be great. Just saying, GW. But I think that's too long from now. Yeah. I don't think we can do another 6 weeks at most, 7 weeks at most of Eldar doing what they're doing right now. So before we talk about the tournaments, Billy, what?
Yeah, no, if you were tossing to me, I was going to say you're starting to see that exact sentiment bubble up more and more places. Not people who always run to say the sky is falling, who that's their shtick, and those people just whatever, they're out there, but this needs to be addressed. The Eldar are just too good. And I would argue they're too good in a kind of uninteresting to play against way.
Yeah.
It's just sort of, they pick up a third of your army on turn 1, and then another third on turn 2, and then another third on turn 3. And if they don't do that, it's because they didn't want to. And there's not a lot you can do about it.
Yeah, and what really kills me is if you look through the book, other than a very few things, Avatar or the Incarn, there's no close combat in that book that's of any value. No. The Banshees and Scorpions, their only value is that they're cheap. The Wraithblades, axes and shields, nowhere near as good as Wraithguard. Why would you ever take them? The close combat is just atrocious. And to have that be the case in a book, and it's not that it's average and the rest of the book is powerful, it's bad. It's a lot of strength 3 and strength 4 close combat with very little AP that doesn't help you in the current game. And so what you see is people take the most efficient shooting. Harlequins being mixed in with Eldar hurts us even more because that means they could take the shooty boats, which are incredible for 100 points. Void Weavers. So you have the situation where the best things in the book are shooting. You have the ability to reroll a hit and wound, which means that MSU shooting is by far the best because then you get the most rerolls per turn. Then you deal with the fact that they have really good indirect. Night Spinners are appalling at how good they are at just shutting stuff down. You go first against a Custodes player and their big brick goes 3, 4 and doesn't advance.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. So like the army has tools, it has good deep strike, it has the warp spiders that move 24 for mission play, it has just an incredible amount of tools. And what do? Right? It is boring for me because it is just fast guns. And there's nothing for me to learn from that. I think that to address this, it is points and rules. I don't know how that looks. I think that the Night Spinners rule needs to be nerfed, aside from just points. I think the Wraith Knight, it's done. It's time to go, Wraith Knight. I think raise it 100, 200 points at this point. Just kick it in the nards and be done with it. I think that the Wraith Knight being in every single Eldar list I saw at WTC is really not good for the game. Everybody had Wraithguard too, even though they don't have pistols anymore, which blew me the hell away.
That one strikes me as lack of testing because I found them to be anemic without it. But they're psychotically the tiers between me and a WTC player are so many that I can't see. But that surprised me, the amount of teams that still had Wraithguard.
Yeah, I think so too. So someone's asking me what rules I would change for Eldar. I'm going to be I'm going to be honest about that. I'm bad at that game. I don't particularly play it. I think that towering in general needs to change, and I would like that change would just affect the Wraith Knight in a way that matters. I don't think that you should be able to just vomit mortals on Overwatch with full rerolls to hit. I don't think that that's a thing that needs to exist, but that is a ton of points, so it's kind of okay-ish. D-cannons are still a problem. I think that they shouldn't be heavy. I think would help them. That makes them -1 to hit when they're indirect. Right now they're hitting on 3s and indirect. Hitting on 4s would be a lot better for that unit. The Night Spinner ability needs to be rewritten for sure. Shadow Specters need to go up in points. Warp Spiders should only be able to use their ability once per game.
Phantasm needs to do something completely different.
I think Phantasm and Fire and Fade should switch CP costs. I think that would be better. What?
Or just both be 2.
Well, just Fire and Fade's so much worse than Phantasm that to have it be the same cost or even more doesn't make any sense. Frankly, they don't need both of those. No. Having both of those in the same army is pretty silly. So yeah, there's some stuff that needs to be changed, but the real problem is that they're fast and they have ridiculous guns and they do a lot of mortals. That's the real problem. So let's talk about the tournaments. First of all, leave it to England to have a 200-person tournament the week before WTC, and members of their WTC team were there. Amazing. Okay, so 175 people. This is the Leeds Super Major in Leeds, England, not surprising. They did a cut to top 4 and had them do a playoff. The top 4 is the incredibly interesting hybrid mix of Eldari, and Deathwatch. First of all, big shout outs to our the hero of them all, Christopher Radford, who made it into the top 4 without Eldari. He had Deathwatch. The next top 4 in the top 8 are GSC, Chaos Space Marines, Chaos Knights, and something, because Billy put 833 there, and I don't know what that means. Well, I just don't know. Oh, number 8 through 33 went 4 and 1. Right. That's what you're saying. Okay.
Yes.
So Josh Roberts, who's on Team England, he won with a list that has double Wraith Knight. There's not, and then the Avatar and the Incarn, which is a little bit amazing. Congrats to him. Then John Swallow got second place. His list has the Incarn as well. He has double Wraith Knight and D cannons. I'm going into a lot of detail on these Eldar lists, guys. Third place is Luke Quadling, who's from the Worcestershire Sorcerers, which I enjoy. He had the Incarn and Void Weavers and Warp Spiders and Warwalkers and D cannons and all the MSU while not having a Wraith Knight or Wraith Guard. By the way, guys, this is the problem.
Yeah.
These lists are like 70%, 60% the same. That's not good. We don't want that. We want the list to be like 90% the same because that makes the army infinitely nerfable. But that's not what we're seeing.
Yeah. I don't know if we told this story, but a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, I made a hyperbolic statement to Colin offline that I could make 3 separate Eldar lists with almost no overlap, all of which would crush things. And I did a better job than I thought when I was being hyperbolic. You can't exactly do it, but there's like 1,300 points of flex that you can change in 3 different armies.
Yeah. So the Death Watch list has a captain and a watchmaster. It's got 3 units of 10. 3 units of 5.
Vets.
I'm confused.
I'll pull it up.
No. 3 units of 10 vets that have frayed cannons and hammers. Then a unit of Destillators, a unit of Plasma Inceptors to come in 3 away and do a thing, Infiltrator, Land Speeder, and then 1 Proteus kill team and a Repulsor. So that's a Death Watch list. I don't have much else to say about the lead Super Major. The things that I expected to do well did well. If I'm going through the list, I'll point out that number 9, 11, 12, 16, 17, and 20 out of the top 20 are all Eldari as well. Moving on. Next up, we have the Battle to End Alzheimer's. Now, first of all, if a 40K tournament has the ability to end Alzheimer's and we haven't done it already, that's not okay. Let's just be clear. Now, all joking aside, I obviously have a soft spot in my heart for charity. I can only presume that this is a charity event, so thank you, the people of Westminster, Maryland, for doing the Battle to End Alzheimer's 2023. It was won by Ruben Fernandez, who's a fantastically nice human that I know. He's a friend of the Art of War guys. He had Eldari. By the way, this one's Eldari, Deathwatch. So this one's super different from the previous one. By the way, I'm super wondering if all these Deathwatch lists were under wraps because of WTC until after list lock. Because
maybe
no Deathwatch, then WTC lists are live. Deathwatch. Yeah. So I don't know.
I'm going to mute myself so I can move out of here so that the baby can scream in this room.
Okay.
I'll be back in a few.
So Ruben won with Eldari. His list has 1 Wraith Knight. It does have Warp Spiders. It does have some Void Weavers. It has double Night Spinner, and he has the Incarn. Everybody's taking the Incarn. I have a lot of Custodes in my meta, and I don't like the Incarn into Custodes. So I'm always really interested in how many people have the Incarn, because while the mobility trick is fantastic, if the other army isn't MSU and you don't kill things when you want, plus you can't charge anything or you die, is a real problem for the Incarn. So I'm really interested in that choice for everyone to take it, but they're not wrong. It's really good. I just don't understand how it works in some of the meta matchups. All right, second place is Matthew, sorry guys. Matthew Burgoon maybe? And he had a Ynnari list. So that's different. It's got the Incarn and Yvrain, Death Jester Farseer, double Shadow Spectre, big unit of 10 Rangers to go with Illic. That's a thing I've done. It's pretty fun. 3 units of Warp Spiders, and then he's got 3 Hornets, which are an incredible model for their points. 3 Ravagers, again, incredible for their points, and 3 Warwalkers. This list is basically Ynnari specifically for the Ravagers. I like that fine. I personally think that if you add Yvrain's 100 points to the cost of those Ravagers, excuse me, I'm having wicked bad indigestion, everybody. I'm sorry. I think that if you add the 100 points from Yvrain to those 3 Ravagers and you make each of them close to 130 points, I don't think they're actually better than Fire Prisms at that point. I actually don't think they're ever better than Fire Prisms. So to me, this is not as good of a list as the Fire Prism list. That said, He went 2-0 at a big event, and it's obviously a good list. So big props to Matthew Burgoon for doing something slightly different. The very accomplished and person who's probably unhappy that Admech's bad, Mark Hertel, went third with Deathwatch, and his list has Captain and Gravis, Librarian, and Watchmaster. He's got 2 units of those vets with the same war gear as the previous ones we talked about. That's not true. He has heavy bolters instead of frag cannons in one of the units. He's got 2 rhinos, so that's fun to see. Also has Desolators. He's got a unit of Eradicators, 6 Eradicators. I've been playing with Eradicators, and I love them. What I particularly like about them is that you can put them in 3s and just strat reserve them. And you have these 3 guys without an overly big footprint who can just come in at a weird angle within 18 inches of some vehicle and just re-roll everything and wreck that vehicle. I really, really like them. I think they're really cool for their points. 2 Inceptor squads, actually 3 Inceptor squads, 2 3s, and a 6. So big shout out to Mark Hertel for getting 3rd place with Deathwatch. 4th place is also Deathwatch with Ken Knox. Ken has got Captain and Gravis Armor, Watchmaster, Desolation, Eradicator. This is 3 Eradicators. Then he's got 2 units of 3 Inceptors, a unit of Incursors, and then he's running 1 big Indominus kill team, 2 Infiltrators, a big Proteus kill team. He's got the Thunderstrike for +1 to wound, and then he has the Exaction squad, which I don't understand why everybody that is playing Imperium doesn't have, because 35 points for that unit is absolutely nutty. While we wait for Billy to come back, the rest of the top 8 is Jonathan Colson with Custodes. Tyler Principio with Chaos Demons. Jeremy King with Custodes. Robin Robert with GSC. Sean Reynolds, Ultramarines. Drew Rhodes, Necrons. Those are the top 10. While we are sitting here with time left, I'm going to see what this Ultramarines list looks like, because I love me some Ultramarines.
Colin, can you not see me?
I can hear you. Sorry. Welcome back.
Okay. I've actually been here for those.
Double Whirlwind, Thunderfire Cannon, Scouts, Infiltrators, Inceptors, Lancer, Devastators, Desolation. Yeah, pretty standard. Okay. Hi, Billy.
Hi. How are you doing?
Hi. Welcome back. I'm ready for you to take over and talk about your 3 tournaments.
Lovely. So there is variation here. Eldari are not the first 2 spots. At the Capital Clash Ere We Go in Ainsley, Australia, which is 51 players over 5 rounds. They're instead 3rd and 4th place, but they're not 1st and 2nd, which I think is important for us all to recognize. 1st place was William Wyckoff with Necrons. Necrons are sort of coalescing on 2 big immovable bricks, one of which is Lichguard, the other is either Lichguard or 20 Warriors. You throw Crypto Thralls in there. The Crypto Thralls have a 4-up Feel No Pain and get to keep coming back because of the way their keywords work. And so those things are very durable. And then what William did is he added 3 solo Locust Destroyers and then 3 solo Locust Heavy Destroyers, which are just small, efficient shooting units that can all bounce around the board and play the mission really well. So you basically have, an anvil that moves forward, holds the board, and a bunch of really efficient mission playing stuff around it that can also shoot you while it's coming. There's a Catan in there, which I assume is this super unkillable one because it, halves damage and has a 4-up Feel No Pain. That's challenging to get through. And then 5 Death Marks and a Hex Mark for, that'll make Gene Stealer Cult Army at least think. I don't know if it'll make them sad, but it'll make them think. 2nd place, you got Taylor Hill with the aforementioned Gene Stealer Cult. All of the characters, an entire line of my text here in characters, which is the ones you think. 2 Nexos, 3 Primus, so all of his neophytes have the full rerolls. 2 units of 10 Demo Charge Acolytes, 1 Reductress, 2 Ridge Runners, and 10 Aberrants. Broadly, that's the Gene Stealer Cult Army you're looking at these days. Dale Mann in 3rd place with Eldari. Brought the 10 Wraith Guard, no Wraith Knights, 2 Fire Prisms, 2 Hornets, 2 5s of Spectres and Spiders. This is the non-Wraith Knight way to do it. Jack Lavercombe in 4th place again, Eldari, Wraith Knight, 3 Fire Prisms and a Night Spinner, and then some small mission playing tools. Did have the Incarn. Dale's did not. Jet, here's a conversation that we can have about Eldari, Colin. Illic Night Spear. I think Illic is a trap and attacks. Your thoughts? You're muted still.
That's hard. Because so in my Dark Angels army, I have 1 unit of scouts, which is a unit that can't be shot outside of 12 for 75 points. They start off the game standing on a thing, and they stand on that thing for the game, and they give you victory points. And I think that this Ranger and Illic unit does that as well. I do not think that the Ranger and Illic unit does any damage of any kind. And I think that people are mistaken about that. The 10-man Illic unit that I saw on one of the lists that I covered, I think it's a bad use of points. I don't think that 10-man unit does any damage. Like, yes, they reroll wounds because of Illic, but they're still strength 4, AP 1, and that's just not particularly good. So I backed off of using him, mostly because while that is really good points, while that is a really good way to get victory points, that is an 100 and whatever 20-point unit for 5 guys in Illic. And there's simply more shooting that you could take for those points. So I don't think he's wrong. He's just a tech piece that isn't necessary if you're just tabling people.
Right. That is
the reason I brought the Dark Angels. I realized I brought the Dark Angels up, but I didn't make the connection. The reason I brought the Dark Angels up is I keep taking the scouts out of the list when I'm picking up my army. Why?
Really?
Why? Because my army literally runs forward. And so while it's neat to have a unit that stands on a thing, I also could get more killing things that go forward. So I still have the scouts in the list to stand on a thing and not be shot by indirect fire. And that's great. But I'm just telling you where the thought comes from about not taking it. So Illic and 5 Rangers is a lot of points. That's my summary.
Yeah, my flip on that one was when I realized Illic himself was more expensive than 5 Rangers, so I could just have another unit of 5 Rangers rather than Illic and stand in another spot. And they have a 5-up invuln. The shooting that would be dedicated to them is kind of wasted on them, and so they have sort of built-in lone operative anyway because I don't really want to shoot them. That was my thinking. That is the Capital Clash. Here we go. So that's what's happening down in Australia before they come to Belgium and do dirty things to us Northern Hemisphere folk. The Boardroom Brawl 2023 in Grand Forks, Canada. 40 players, 5 rounds.
This is a silly tournament on purpose.
Oh, is it?
Yes. This is not supposed to be serious lists. That's not the point of this tournament.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. Largely when we get to the 4th place, and I mostly wanted to talk about it because Alex McDougall came in 4th place and he's worth paying attention to. But if he was intentionally doing something silly, then I'm less interested in what he's doing, although it was silly. But hold on for another 2 or 3 minutes to find out what Alex did. First, what do they do that makes it silly? Is it just everyone knows bring a silly list, or are there actual rules that incentivize it?
I don't know. Alex just told me that it's a purposefully silly list tournament.
Okay. Well, I don't know if David Burdett got that memo because his army seems to be sort of right down the middle of what you would expect with a good Thousand Suns army.
Yeah.
Ahriman on disc, Exalted Sorcerer, Infernal Master, Magnus, and a Demon Prince. Good slew of characters. 2 units of 10 rubrics with flamers, 5 regular rubrics, a Rhino, Mutilith Vortex Beast, 5 Terminators, 2 Spawn, and 10 Cultists. That's just a good Thousand Suns list.
Yep.
It will kill you if you get close. Riley Carter, similarly, this looks like a Knights list that is fine. Canis, a Crusader, a Valiant, a Helvern, and 2 Warglaves. That's the 3 big, 3 small Imperial Knights army. That's going to just... Knights... So shout out to friends. Stat Check did their first big meta breakdown of what's winning and what's not and how, and all of their various statistics, most of which are very, very good. And their comment about Knights is that they basically are the Uber gatekeeper of the meta is that they kill everything below them and then probably lose to GSC or Eldari in one of the last rounds. And this seems like a list that would be able to do exactly that. Be my take on Riley's army.
Mm-hmm.
Another reason I wanted to talk about this is third place orc player has a delightful name, Scott de Winter Wilkie.
I have lost to him playing orcs before.
Have you? Okay, well.
Yeah, I lost with GSC versus his orcs in 8th edition at a big tournament. He is a wonderful human. How wonderful a human is he? Well, we invited him to Charity Hammer, and he's coming. That's how wonderful of a human he is.
Oh, well, please tell Scott for me when he shows up that I love his last name. It is a delight.
De Winter Wilkie? Yeah.
It really, that's just fun. He brought a whole just sort of green, well, no, not really. Big Mech and Mega Armor, Def Killa, Badrock, three separate knobs on Squigs as characters, Truck a Battle Wagon, 10 Flash Gits, 30 Gretchen, 3 Mega Knobs, 633 of Piggies, 2 5 of Storm Boys, and 6 Bikers. So a relatively fast, relatively mechanized rush at you orc army.
Maybe the thing was you just couldn't take a super serious list if you were Alex.
Yeah, because, finishing on Scott, fast mechanized orcs. If you want to see what that taken to 11 is, look at Lucas Troller's WTC list, which is just all boys and trucks. He's just playing Gorka Morka, and everyone else is playing 40K. It's worth checking out. And
I'm old enough to get that reference.
Yes, I was going to old shame myself with the Gorka Morka. And then Alex, in 4th place, brought an Abominant, an Icon Ward, a Biophagus, a Reductus, 10 Neophytes, no Acolytes, no remaining 80 to 120 more Neophytes. He then brought 2 Trucks, a Rock Grinder, 5, 10, and 10 of Aberrants, and 6 Ridge Runners. Muscle Beach.
Yep. Excuse me. You know what's funny? That list is good.
Yeah, I mean, chewing through 25 Aberrants is sort of a similar math problem that, Knights, or I would argue Custodes, can give you. It's just like some things can't kill that before they kill them. It's an insolvable math problem.
Yep, I agree.
And then the last event of any size, this one, 0 Eldari in the top 4. It's a smaller event, but it checks out. The North Star Open in Superior, Wisconsin was 38 players, 5 rounds, won by Chase Garber with Tyranids. This one is what I would classify as sort of a mid-big bug list. Neurotyrant, 10 Gargoyles, 2 5s of Barb Gaunts, 2 Biovores, 2 Exocrines, 2 Maliceptors, 3 Molochs, which is fun, Psychophage, which is the new thing from the Leviathan box, 3 Venoms, and 2 6s of Zoanthropes.
Yes. From this list, I can tell you that they are not playing GW terrain. I don't know what terrain they played at the North Star Open, but that many monsters is extremely good if there's any sort of lightness to the terrain. And I'm not saying there is. It could be that Chase Garber is a madman, a mad person of gender that I don't know, that was able to just wreck everyone because they're so good. I would guess that because of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 large monsters, 9 including the Neurotyrant, that amount of beef was able to maneuver the table well. So really, really neat list. I know that Tyler and I love talking about the Molochs. I don't know that we think they're good, but certainly a neat list. I'm very surprised not to see the Walkrent, who gives out advance and shoot in an aura, which, is pretty good.
Yes. Second place, we have Devin Orchard. Similar overall build to what we talked about earlier. 20 Lich Guard with their Crypto Thralls and characters to go in it. 3 Hex Marks, which is a nod, I would assume, to the GSC. The Catan, Lord, Overlord, Techno, and Reanimator. 10 more Death Marks. 3 3s of Locust Heavy Destroyers, and 3 Tomb Blades. So again, similar sort of Lich Guard move forward. Everything else dances around the edges. You can't kill me. I score points. Third place, Jeremiah Pettit with Custodes, which is something that I'm actually paying much more attention to right now. Custodes have, which we'll get to in a moment, one of the most unfortunate name overlaps in their most likely lists. So 2 Blade Champions, those hand out advance and charge. They make your custodes go fast. 1 shield captain. They make your custodes do free actions. 9, 9, and 5 guardians.
Yep.
Custode guard. They're, I would argue, they're the punchiest of the custode foot dudes.
They are.
Just for me, learning what the various flavors of Golden Boys do, I used to look at them and be like, okay, they're unkillable and they're punchy, but I didn't understand the variation. So I'm going to try to give folks the variation. That's what these guys are. And then here's the name thing. He's got 2 Caladius and 1 Calidus.
Mm-hmm.
And can we just get some different letters in one of those 2 names, because they show up next to each other, and 2 of them are very large tanks, and one of them is a very small lady assassin. They're all very good choices, but they're like, you switch an L for an A and you got the name, and it's not helpful. And then 2 5s of exaction squads, because to Colin's point, GW decided that there can be a good 35.5 man unit in all Imperium lists. And if you can get your hands on them, or you don't mind proxying or kit bashing, they're just so cheap and so good. And then 4th place, we have Stephen Crawford with Chaos Demons, Bellicor, Bloodthirster, Keeper, Shalaxi, 10 blues, 20 pinks, and 3x3 flamers. That's, broad. The blues and the pinks are a little bit of interesting choices, but they can hang around for a very long period of time. And if you're clever enough to do shenanigans with how they split, you can end up wanting to get shot and killed so that you can get to good and fun places. While your big bugs of Bellicor, Bloodthirster, Keeper, and Shalaxi deal with the opposing army. Those are the events. So it does look like as you start to get to the smaller, more idiosyncratic ones, the absolute stranglehold that Eldari have goes away. That said, if we were to look at the top 10 armies, Eldari were showing up as like 3 or 4 of the unlisted ones in all of my events too. GW, WTC lists are locked already, but please learn something from this weekend and remove us from our pointy-eared overlords, says the man who would play his pointy-eared overlords if they were just broken in a different way.
Well, and here's my big concern. I'm concerned that Eldar will get nerfed again, and we won't pay attention to Gene Stealer Colt. Gene Stealer Colt are in the 60s for percentage win rate on their own. And that's not okay. And the way that they win is obnoxious. So that's also a pretty big feel bad. And I think that's the other thing that needs immediate addressing. I would say that towering is not as important as those 2 armies getting addressed. I think those 2 armies are both in need of an emergency fac. And I hope that they both get hit and not just Eldar.
Yeah, that is very fair. The saving grace between the 2 is that Eldari are one of those factions that has a very broad player base, and the way that they're good allows that very broad player base to succeed with them. I would say it's not, it might be as point and click as the triple repulsor executioner was, where you were seeing, and that was a thing that people did interesting analysis of like players who at a 5-round event were 0, 1, or 2 wins with the triple repulsor executioner, we're flipping to 4 or 5 wins. And you're seeing anecdotally in my play groups, you're seeing a similar level of pull up in terms of the lifting that the army does for the player. I think that GSE probably they're much lower in player base, and probably like a small step down in just ease of point and click play. I'd be curious in your analysis of the second point there is
I think they're significantly harder to play. I've played both, and now Eldar, the way that Eldar are good right now is like, you've been driving cars all your life. Here's a car. Can you drive it to work? Like, there's nothing for me to learn in the Eldar army right now. Yeah. That said, I think GSC is much harder, but that is less of an army I would normally play. But it's not hard. It's just harder. Yeah. And I think that we see that in some of the performance. I think that if it was a little bit easier, we'd see an even higher hit rate, win rate for them, which we, of course, don't need.
No. And if you take those 2 armies out and you do something nice to Admech, Votan, and Death Guard,
Oh yeah, Votan's rocking like a 20% win rate, something like that.
It's something really sad. It's like just
Yeah.
give them back their initial, small codex point level and let them bring that many toys to the table, and let's just see, because what they did to judgment tokens is kind of what I expect to happen to Eldar at whatever point when Eldar get touched. It's just like, oh, here is the dumpster, here is a fire, you get to live at the bottom of that.
Yeah.
So they could just have a lot of toys on the table. And I think that'd be fun. I think the people who like Votan want to put a lot of their little dwarves on the table. So yeah, help those things. And the middle, to your point at the very start of this, because let's try to make this be positive. The playing the non-S tier into the non-S tier is a fun freaking game.
Agreed.
There's a lot of it that is enjoyable. There's a reason we play this hobby. Just some nice tweaks around the edges, and we've got ourselves in a really good place for Index Hammer.
Yeah, I think that the Tyranid Codex will help with that because it's going to show us where we're going.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We haven't seen a Codex yet. We don't know what that really looks like. I like the detachment thing where your strats and everything are from the detachment.
Yeah.
So that's a way they can provide variety without having to be like, here's 6 hive fleets and a custom hive fleet. Right. By the way, 4 of these hive fleets are terrible, and 3/4 of the custom hive fleets are trash as well. Enjoy your variety. Right. And I think that that's not what is good for the game, and so I'm hoping that's not what they do. Well, I have a meeting in 4 minutes, so I have to wrap up the show now. What do you got, Billy?
Let me riff for 1.5 of those minutes on that exact point. That is a thing that siloing into each detachment really lets them do, because it was always like this hive fleet was the punchy hive fleet, and this is the shooty hive fleet, and this is the psychic hive fleet. But because they shared so much communal rules, it was just, which one of these things is broken? Okay, I'm going to do that. By segmenting off so many of those rules, you can really make the punchy hive fleet be a fundamentally different thing than the shooty one, and power up different things within them. And that's what I really hope that they do in NIDS. And then in Marines, let White Scars punch something and move fast, please, when that codex comes.
Agreed completely. I think that's great. My final thoughts are, I know I've been openly frustrated with the meta today. I'm not frustrated with 40K. I think the 40K is in a good place. I think the 10th edition has us headed in the right direction. The imbalances of the indexes are the problem. They will be resolved. We have a balance update coming in September. That's going to tell us a lot. So, 40K is still fun. Hobbying models is still fun. Tiny Soldiers is still fun. Going to the game store and buying 3 times as much things as you needed on that trip is still fun. Please just keep enjoying your hobby. It's something that brings joy to so many people. And I'd really love it all if you guys would support and help us promote Charity Hammer, because that's the most important thing I do every year in my life. So thank you, everybody, for This Week in 40K. He's Billy, and I'm Colin because somebody has to be. And we will be back next Tuesday, where we will talk about WTC. Bye, guys.
Bye.